Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Susan Steinhoffel, and on behalf of Roots and Branches Board of Directors, welcome to our All About Planting Garlic seminar. Now, Roots and Branches, formerly the West Bend Beautification Committee, as most of you might remember, is a nonprofit organization positively impacting the natural environment of West Bend for 30 plus years through year-round programs that include our Clean Up Green Up program, the campaign of Clean Up Green Up, fantastic program that allows a lot of volunteering to go to the different parks, clean them up, and beautify the city. And Arbor Day program, Mayor's Residential and Business Beautification Awards, and regular educational seminars like tonight. Its Adopt-A-Plot programs provide beauty in downtown West Bend, and Adopt-A-Plot boy, say that 10 times. Its Adopt-A-Plot program provides beauty in downtown West Bend and other areas of the city throughout the year. You might want to check out our newest Adopt-A-Plot, which is north of the city of West Bend, on the corner of Barton and Commerce. And that is our newest Adopt-A-Plot. It is a beautiful little garden dedicated to the city of West Bend, and it's right along the Eidsmom Trail, so it's really a very unique one. So all of these programs I just mentioned are planned, coordinated, and implanted, no pun on words there, implanted, by scores of hardworking volunteers and supported by the generosity of our donors. We are working on setting up our seminars for 2022, and we'll get the information out there and posted as soon as our speakers' dates and information is all confirmed. If you'd like additional information, please go to our website, www.rootsandbranches.org. I would like to introduce our guest speaker for tonight, Mary Reilly-Kliss. I am so excited about this, and she is a master of master gardening. She is awesome. I'm reading her bio, and it just goes on and on. I am honored to introduce her. She is the Ozaki Master Gardener. She also is a developer and coordinator of the Washington County Community Garden in West Bend, and that's where I met Mary. And I'm involved with that. It is a wonderful program. She does an outstanding job. A little bit more detail about her. She taught middle school reading language arts for 32 years, retiring in 2005, served on various committees for the City of West Bend, including the West Bend Beautification Committee, the pre-skirter for Roots and Branches, and the West Bend Community Memorial Library Board. In 2013, honored to be a recipient of a Washington County Leading Citizen Award. And she states that she's been gardening in one way or another her entire life. And one of her first retirement activities was to take on the training program of becoming a master gardener through the University of Wisconsin Extension. One of the requirements for master gardener certification is to give back to the community via volunteerism. And she has seen, she's done allotments in action in Germany, so she came up with this wonderful idea of incorporating the Washington County Community Garden as a project. So in 2007, the Washington County Community Garden was started under her sponsorship of the Master Ozaki Gardeners. And the gardens tripled in size in just 3 years, and at the present time, approximately 100 people in 1078 plots. I'll say that again. That is phenomenal. And you will be able to get a glimpse of what the Washington County Community Garden looks like in our upcoming video. And this has been an ongoing, wonderful project for the last 5 months. It's been awesome. Who thought that garlic was so amazing? It's healthy, it's self-sufficient, it's really easy to grow. There's, for some reason, there seems to be a little bit of a mystery behind how to grow and how to plant garlic. But you can turn your garden into a 5-star restaurant by just adding the garlic. It's just amazing. So she has been it's really kind of a cute piece that she wrote here. It says, while gardening one July day, about 10 years ago, the scent of an Italian restaurant began to waft over the gardens. A fellow gardener who was a garlic collector was harvesting his crop. I checked it out and became a garlic grower. Awesome, Mary.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I think that if you're a novice gardener, you've never grown anything in your life, this would be a great place to start. Susan is a member of the community garden this year. She's got a plot where she's got all kinds of interesting things going on back there in her plot. So I hope that tonight you'll learn a little bit about growing gardening and growing garlic in your garden. Even if you only have a balcony, I think you could probably do it in pots. Or maybe just a little tiny raised bed someplace at home. So we're going to cue up a video which will trace the growing season for garlic. And as you're watching it, if you run across anything that you want more information about, or if you have questions, just jot them down, and then you'll be able to email or text in questions that you might have during the video. When the video is finished, I'll field questions, maybe expand on a couple of things, so I think we're ready. Thank you.
All right. Get excited about how to plant and grow garlic.
Good morning. My name is Mary Reilly-Kliss, and I am the coordinator of the Washington County Community Garden, located here in the city of West Bend on the corner of Water and Indiana Streets. We've been here now, this is our 13th year, and it's a project of the Ozaukee Master Gardeners. And every year we rent plots to about, we have 78 plots, and I'm thinking that involves maybe 125 people who get my weekly emails with information about gardening, garden pests, of which we have many. It's beginning to be high season for bugs. It's the 10th of June. The thermometer says it's 79. The humidity dew point is 69, so it's really, really warm down here. The warm temperatures that we've had have been, we're making some plants very happy and other plants not so much. So we're going to talk today about growing garlic. Today I'm going to discuss garlic scapes and how they form, and then also show you how to go about digging a sample bulb of garlic just to see how your plants are doing. Thank you. And today we're going to talk a little bit about growing garlic, because at this time of year, we garlic growers start to watch our plants for some real important development. The plants were put in the ground last October. You can plant garlic anytime until the frost sets the ground. And we've had people planting as late as the day after Christmas and still having a good crop. Today we're looking at the formation of garlic scapes, which is a really important indicator that the bulb, which is growing underground, is reaching it's starting to develop into cloves. So when I see that garlic scapes are beginning to form, there's a little bump at the end, and it curls up like a pig's tail. So when I see these scapes, I know that good things are happening underground, and also good things are happening above ground, because we can pop those scapes off and cook with them. You'll frequently see them at farmers market. They're very tender, they're very, very tasty. So that's one important indicator of the growth of your garlic. The other thing that you need to watch for is the leaves turning brown. When the plant reaches a stage where there are perhaps 2 or 3 brown leaves left, then it's time to dig. And then we'll be covering that in probably in July-ish, depending on the weather. Typically a week or 2 before I harvest, I also stop watering so that it's nice and dry when we dig. And if we're having a drought, which we are right now, that shouldn't be a problem. But I can almost guarantee that the week before I want to start digging garlic, we're probably going to have some downpours, which is okay because we really do need the rain. So what I want to do is I'm going to pop off some scapes and show you what they look like in different stages of development. And then I'm going to dig a bulb so that we can see what's happening underneath. So we just pop them off. You just reach down into the plant and it's ready to go. This one isn't quite ready. It's still kind of standing up. I like them to get the curl and to have a real defined bump in them. So we've got some. We could just go down the line and start popping some off. You can also use a scissors, but I kind of like to do it with my fingers because it's like perfume, garlic perfume. This one is interesting because for some reason it's kind of malformed. It started to roll up into the leaf. I don't know why. I don't think it's any kind of a bug or a disease or anything. I think it's just a function of the plant. Well, this is a collection of garlic scapes that I've just popped off the top of some of the plants. And in the kitchen, what you would do would be to dice them up into small dice, as you would, say, green onions, and then mix them with onions, maybe some other herbs. Rosemary is always a good comparison, or a good companion, rather, to garlic. And then include them in your stir fries. If you were going to, say, cook some zucchini or tomatoes, or you could perhaps even use them ahead of time and maybe put them on some grilled chicken. I think it's just a really interesting plant that a lot of people don't know what to do with. So that's garlic scapes. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to dig a sample bulb just to see what's happening. I know they're not quite ready yet, but I'm really a nosy gardener and I like to know what's happening. So this is what growth has been from October through now. And this was just a clove when it was planted, just one single clove. I tend to, because I have so many different kinds of variety, I replant my own. Occasionally I'll buy some new. I like to buy new varieties of garlic at farmers markets. And we often travel out west in the fall, so I've gotten some rather interesting varieties that way. When you kind of feel around it, it's still what's called green garlic because it hasn't formed the cloves yet. And since it will be the end of June or maybe second week in July before I actually dig, it's got plenty of time to continue forming. You can see it's got a really good root set. The roots have been going down deep. It's kind of damp and we have not watered very much at all. I mulch very, very heavily, and then I pull that mulch back, I would say maybe the week before I'm going to harvest, to give the soil a chance to dry out so that it increases the cure rate. So if we pull these off, I'll still use this in cooking. It's called green garlic, and it's really, really tasty. So we'll be back again when I dig. Date to be determined, depends on the weather and also on the growth of the plants. Thank you. Well, good morning. The last time we met, it was the 10th of June, and I was talking to you about taking garlic scapes off your plants, and the reason we did that was so that the energy went into building the bulb and not creating seeds, which is what would happen if you left that seed head on long enough. So today we're going to talk about digging garlic and how do you know when it's time. Well, as is usual, you kind of have to watch Mother Nature. In the past, I have dug my garlic when about a third of the plant's leaves had turned brown. And this year, however, we had some really hot weather in June. And then we had 3 inches of rain over 3 days about a week ago. So that's really changed, I think, how I'm gonna, and how other gardeners are gonna look at their garlic this year. One of the things that you need to do is to, before you dig, if you have a lot of mulch on your plants, you need to pull that mulch back so that the soil dries out a bit. I pulled my mulch yesterday, and because it's been so warm, it looks like it's going to be just fine. The danger in leaving all that mulch on is that the garlic will then have a harder time drying out and curing, and you run into some dangers of rot and mold, and you certainly don't want to do that once you've started to grow your own garlic. So yesterday I came down and I pulled back the mulch, and today I did a couple of test pulls. As you can see, I have labels on all of my garlic. It's one of the Roots and Branches plant labels, and I use one of those label maker thingies, and I just put the label on, and then I can use them not only when I plant it, but I also then can bundle the garlic with that label, and I'll know what variety it is. I typically plant maybe 7 or 8 different kinds of garlic, and not everyone is quite that obsessive, but I like to know when I dig it what kind it is, because that tells me whether or not I want to grow it again. Last year I had some plants that people highly recommended. They did not do well for me, so I did not replant them. So that's one of the reasons that we keep the labels on there, is so that I know what kind of garlic it is. So today I'm going to do some digs. Now I already did a preliminary pull of 2 different kinds just to see what it was like underneath. What you're looking for is, when you touch this bulb, you can feel the cloves, all right? And the same thing on this, although the cloves on this variety are a little bit smaller. When you have garlic that has real obvious big cloves around it like that, that tells you that it's ready to dig. And if you leave it in there much longer, you're going to have some problems with your crop. I can already see that there's some mold growing here on the skin, on the outer layers. So I pulled these 2 and I said, yeah, this guy's ready, and so is this one. Now I also, in addition to labeling them with, putting them in bundles with the plant label from the row, I take a magic marker, and on the stem I write down its type. So this one, this is Spanish red right here, and I think this one is a Georgia porcelain, perhaps. Of course, I lost the label. So do keep track of what you grow, so that you have a good record for your garden book and also for your cooking, so that you know which ones work well for you. So then you simply, let's finish up this row of German Extra Hardy here. So you continue pulling back mulch as needed, and if you go deep enough, you should be able to lift them right out, like so, and then tap off that extra heavy soil. Now, when you do this, first of all, you're putting the soil back where you want it to be in your garden, and not down a drain somewhere. And I prefer to not wash my garlic. Some people do. I just let it hang to dry, and when it's dried, then as time goes on, most of the soil will fall off, and you'll be able to just tap at it, and the soil will go away. And then we'll get a couple more here. I always hesitate to just pull it, because if it's got really good roots, as it appears to have this year, you run the danger of breaking it off in the soil. The soil, as you can see, is still really wet. I typically cover it with about maybe 5 or 6 inches of mulch when I plant. So this is all German Extra Hardy, and I always like to recycle stuff. So this is salvaged from my quilting, and I save it, cut it up, and now what I'll do is create a bundle like so, and I hang them in my garage. So you could cut the tops off a little bit, because that's pretty tall depending on what kind of space you have. And then I take the plant label and I slip it right down on here. Okay, so that I know that this is German Extra Hardy. Now, when my canning season starts, probably in about 3-4 weeks, I will just go to the garage, take clippers, and cut off a bottom bulb. You don't have to do anything more than that. Clean it up, and then it'll be ready to use in my cooking. Probably sometime in September, it should be completely dried, if not before, and again, that's all weather dependent. And then you can store the garlic. I tend to leave mine in the garage until, it's just about frost maybe, because I figure it's happy there, so I'm just going to leave well enough. So that's what you need to know about digging garlic. Next time we'll meet, it's probably going to be sometime in October, and I will show you how to plant your bulbs, your cloves actually, so that you can end up with a great harvest in your yard as well. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome again to the Washington County Community Garden. I'm Mary, the coordinator of the program, and today we're going to talk about planting garlic. You'll also probably notice that I have some candles burning here. That is not for garden ambiance, although garden ambiance is always a good thing. It's because the mosquitoes are so horrendous as we put this video together at the beginning of September that I frankly would not even be able to be in here without some kind of a mosquito net suit. So the first thing that you need to do when you're planting garlic is to prepare the bed. And as you can see, we did some initial prep last night. This is a section where we grew beans last year, so now it becomes a garlic plot. We rotate our crops as best we can, given the smaller size of our plot. But I think this will be an okay row for probably around 100 to 120 cloves of garlic. So we dug it, and then we take a landscape rake and then just smooth out the top to bring back any stones, large chunks, pieces of bark mulch that might have gotten in there, so that you have a real nice smooth planting bed for your garlic. The next thing I do is I take a look and see what kind of garlic did well for me last year. So I have a map of last year's garlic, and I've now started my garden map for next year. And in addition to putting down how many cloves of each variety that I put in, I put down 10, say for example, in a particular variety. And then next to it, when I harvest in July, I write down how many came through, how many came back. Not all garlic comes back well, and in fact, if it doesn't perform well for me, then I tell my friends it does not get a seat on my garlic bus next year. It has to get moved back off the bus and somebody else moves in. So I've got my map started now for this year, and I know that it's going to be in this section. So I take a row marker. I make these out of garden twine and lawn stakes, and then that way I can roll them up and use them multiple times, sometimes in a garden season, sometimes certainly year to year. And I'm going to mark out my row. Now in a row this long, I'll probably have maybe 3 or 4 different kinds of garlic. Then I need to decide what I'm going to plant. Last time we had a video, I was digging garlic, and this is how it turns out after it's been hanging in my garage for almost 2 months. You cut the ends off of each bulb, and then you cut the roots off, clean it up, and you end up with a nice bulb of garlic rather. Now you'll notice that I have initials on here. I label every clove that I've cleaned because I want to know what kind it is and if it's hardneck or softneck. Montana Zemo is a hardneck garlic, and as I feel around the edges, easily has 8 or 9 cloves in there. And I peel this off, and this all becomes, compost. It's all good. And pop the clove off, which on some of these varieties is very difficult. And then this clove is what will be planted. I also have some softneck garlic. And I had to, this is called Island Star, and you'll see that the difference between the hardneck and softneck is quite pronounced in these two varieties. This being very large, this being much smaller. And I think I told you that I think there's about maybe 8 or 9 cloves on that bulb. Well, soft garlic is a little different. It doesn't have that middle stem. It just has clove upon clove upon clove, and the cloves are much smaller. They are more difficult to peel in my estimation. So that's your choice, you know. And this is the kind that if you see garlic braids, this is softneck garlic, and that is the kind of garlic that people braid for decorative purposes or for storage as well. So once I have my cloves all set out, I need to make sure that I have labels, because you can, if you don't know, and maybe labeling isn't important to you, but it's always important to me, because as a gardener, I like to know what does well so that I can do it again. I use the roots and branches labels all the time. I can put new labels over the old ones if I have a variety that doesn't work well. Plastic silverware works beautifully, and it works for a couple of years. Again, I use a label maker, put the label on there, and then I stick it down on the ground. I typically put a label in both before and at the beginning and at the end of a particular row, so that I know a particular variety, so that I know that that section contains all Montana Zemo. One thing I will say is that you should always have your garlic seed well sourced. Mine is extremely well sourced because I grew it. Or I also have a garden grower who I buy from. She's at Farmer's Market. Online sources are fine. I would say get Wisconsin garlic. I would never recommend planting garlic from the grocery store. You don't know where it's from. You don't know what kinds of treatments are on it for growing purposes. Also, in the process of digging, sometimes you have a bad, like I hit this with a fork. I would not plant this bulb. I certainly would not plant those damaged cloves. If I can get any kind of a decent clove in there, I would probably use that for cooking, but I would not plant a damaged clove. So when I plant, I just make a little tiny drill, like so. We might as well work with Montana Zemo, since that was the first one that I had here. And you stick them in pointy side up, like so. I put mine in about every, I don't know, maybe 5 inches, maybe 5 or 6 inches. I tend to plant very close because I want to make the best use of my space. So you just kind of push them down in there like so. Continue on your row. Cover them up. And then cover what you've planted with either sheaves of straw like this, and I tend to put this on very, very heavily. Probably easily 4 to 5 inches by when I first plant it. It's always good to come back in a couple months, maybe a month, to see what's happening. And if you've got green growing tips coming through, you want to put more mulch down. Your goal in planting garlic in October is to get root growth but not top growth. You want to save that top growth for the spring. A few years back we had a really warm December, and I came down, I think on Christmas Day, and I had garlic growing, so I immediately put another 4 inches on top because I wanted that to stop, because it was a really warm, wet fall, lots of rain, no snow, so that was a time where I needed to add more mulch. I will tell you that we're doing this in September, and I'm going to pull those cloves out because this is way too early. Typically you plant when you're putting in your daffodil bulbs mid to late October, because again, if you put it in too early, you're going to get top growth, and you don't really want that. It's not best for the plant. So I'm going to pull these out, take them home, bring them back in October. We did have a gardener one year who planted his garlic the day after Christmas, and it might have been the year of the crazy winter. So he had a beautiful harvest. The ground was not thawed, so he was able to plant. So, so again, it's just like tulips and daffodils. If the ground isn't frozen, you can pop them in. I don't tend to fertilize as much as I maybe should, because our soil here is really beautifully built up with lots of organic matter. I would maybe put an onion side dressing, onion fertilizer side dressing on it, maybe in April when it first comes up, if it looks as though the growth isn't particularly sturdy. I think garlic is probably one of those things that people think about, oh, I'd like to try that. Well, I encourage you to try it. It's probably the easiest crop to grow, hardly any work involved, as long as the mosquitoes aren't around. And so I would encourage you to try growing garlic. Thank you very much.
I just love that. Wow, that was terrific. I am all psyched up. Today I went out into the garden and I planted my garlic, and I was really, really excited. I did everything right. I looked at your video and I actually did everything right. So this will be, my first garden that I've planted for garlic. So I planted just about everything else. I do landscape design. I'm a master gardener as well. So, but I've never attempted garlic. So this is an inspiration. Thank you, Mary.
Well, and it's kind of an interesting thing that we've had tonight scheduled for this particular seminar, because both of us ended up planting our garlic today. I planted 145 cloves, which is 6 rows, and I frankly can't wait to see how well or how well maybe they do. How many did you plant? Do you know?
I think I planted about 40.
40, okay.
Because I'm a novice.
That's okay. 40's good.
I start out small.
10's good. Even if you only start with 10.
Yeah.
So what kind did you plant?
I ordered them from a specialty garlic person.
Okay.
It was online.
Okay.
On the internet. I think it was a red garlic, and the other one was some exotic name that's supposed to be hardy for this area.
Okay.
So, and I staked it with the name written on it. So I did exactly what you said. So I know what kind of garlic is. I think one is a hardneck and the other one is a softneck.
Okay.
Yeah, could
okay.
you kind of
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I brought stuff for show and tell. This is an example of Spanish red, Spanish roja, and it's a hardneck garlic. And if we pick away at the outer papers, you can feel immediately there's a real hard stem in the middle, therefore hardneck garlic. This one, Island Star, is softneck, and when you push on the top, it's real mushy. There's no evident stem in there. And the cloves are, as you can see, much, much smaller. With the softneck garlic, you get more cloves, okay? Because they're all packed in there. With the hardneck, you get fewer cloves. But if I pop this off here, some of these cloves are almost the size of a bulb of garlic that you would buy in the store, know?
Nice.
So, and the interesting thing is, genetically, garlic, this is always the same. If you plant this bulb year after year, every year it's going to be linked to the original one. It doesn't change. It doesn't cross-pollinate the way flowers do. Mm-hmm. And the thing to do is, when you have a good crop, is to save your biggest bulbs. And then that becomes your seed garlic. So I always pull one and I label it seed, because this will then create a bigger clove next year, okay? This one did really, really well for me this year, and I really am very, very happy with that. This Island Star is a new one. But again, these are the cloves, and they will be a little bit bigger next year. Probably I don't think they're going to get as big as a hardneck does. Oh. But one thing I know I mentioned in the video was not purchasing garlic in the grocery department to put in your plot. Mm-hmm. Or your garden. I always say plot because I'm a plot person with the community gardens. For one thing, a lot of garlic that you see in the store has been sprayed with a product that will prevent it from sprouting and growing in the store, because it's warm in that store and the growing conditions are going to be pretty good. So that's one reason to not do that. Generally, garlic that you purchase online or that you would get at farmer's market is geared for our growing climate and will do very, very well for us. So I would suggest that you not grow something that you pick up at the store. Okay?
Now, in planting my garlic today, I have to ask you a question. Some of the softnecks had already started to sprout a little bit. So is that going to be problematic?
I don't think so. No, because you're going to be putting it down about 3 inches. Plus, you're going to be putting all that deep mulch on top. So I think it's probably going to be all right. I frequently have a problem, although I have a kind of a root cellar at my house. It doesn't always hold the garlic through the winter as long as I want it to. So if I go down, say in December and our January, and I see that the garlic is starting to put out green growth tips, I separate the cloves, peel off the paper, and I put them in the food dehydrator, and I dehydrate them and then pulse them into garlic powder.
Wow, great idea.
Or you can also, some people also slice them up and put them in the freezer. If you're going to do that, I would suggest using like a zip bag inside a mason jar, because otherwise your ice cream will start to smell and taste like garlic, and you don't want your chocolatey garlic.
A new flavor.
A new flavor,
Garlic.
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. Other questions that you might have from your experience in planting today?
Oh, my. Well, you had mentioned taking cloves off of your largest pieces, and that would be harvesting them in the springtime. And so, but you want to plant them in October. So you've got a clove that you've saved from the harvest time, which
Right.
is June.
July, June, July, wherever.
Okay, and so you keep that bulb fresh and viable in like a jar or in a,
actually, if
in
it's
sawdust or something?
Well, if it's something I dug just to get a test of it to see, oh, is this garlic ready to harvest, I would use it in my cooking. Okay. But the other garlic, once it's all harvested, is hanging in the garage and it's drying. So it doesn't continue to grow once you've pulled it up out of the ground. And typically don't have any problem with any growing tips or things like that. Again, if it happened, I would use it in cooking and not try to figure out a way to save it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So typically, how long does your garlic stay viable and fresh and yummy for?
In my house, you mean once I put it in storage?
Or in your garage, or because
Okay.
you'll have a lot of garlic.
Yes.
And people are going to smell you from a mile
I know,
away if
exactly.
you keep using it for,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of garlic. So, you've got probably more than you can use for the moment or
Right.
the week. So you've got garlic storing in your garage and
Yep.
in your
Yep.
basement. And
Yep.
does it last until how long?
Well, once I take it inside, and my garlic is still in my garage right now, I've cut the tops off, and everything looks like this. I've cleaned them up. And they're just sitting in big baskets in the garage or shallow cardboard boxes. And it's going to stay there till it gets, I'm going to say, maybe the first or second week in November, because it's still so warm here. This is highly unusual for it to be this warm this long.
I know, it's
And so, which is nice in some ways and other ways not. It's out there in the garage, and it's still very viable, because like even this one I just pulled out of the basket on my way here, and it's not growing at all.
Nice.
It's happy so far. So this one clove that I picked off, I'll probably cook with that pretty soon, because it's lost its paper. And that's its protection.
Oh, you're getting me hungry. I
Yeah.
love garlic. It is so good for you. I'm a big foodie. I cook a lot, and I use a lot of garlic, so I'm really
Yeah.
looking forward to my harvest.
Yeah, it looks
for
like we have
the-
one question there. What should you do to?
Oh, good.
Yeah, we have a few questions, actually,
Oh, okay,
if that's
good.
all right. Sorry to
let's hear
interrupt. I'll go through the text line that we had first. Our first texter said, Mary, could you please tell us your favorite type of garlic?
Ooh, it's for ease of growth. I really, really love. Can I only have one? I've got 3. Music, Montana Zemo, and German Extra Hardy. And those are all hardnecks because they give such great big huge cloves. And they're pretty well fail-safe,
And
They-
where did you get them?
Well, let's see. The German Extra Hardy, I think I got from the original garlic grower. Keith was the collector of garlic. And so when he was digging 10 years ago, he said, here, have this.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, and then I got another one. I think I bought one maybe at Whitty's, and music. I probably bought that at Farmer's Market, or maybe in out on one of our travels. It's kind of fun to see what kind of garlic you can find in other places.
You know, that's a really, really good idea. It's kind of a memento.
It's a
from your
souvenir
travelers.
forever. It's a
Yeah.
forever souvenir if
Yeah.
it does well.
Well, that is really
Yeah,
fun.
go ahead.
This question that we have from email is, what should you do to prepare the soil, and do you need to add anything to it?
It all depends on what kind of soil you have, which is probably doesn't really help you a whole lot. Your soil should be really heavy in organic matter. It should be the texture of chocolate cake. When you pick it up and make a fist, it should crumble out very, very nicely. If it sits in your hand as a hard, wet lump, then it's not time to plant garlic. If you're curious about the quality of your soil, I would recommend a soil test, and you can get that through Extension. You take a little bag, they give you a bag and the directions are on it, and it gets sent to the soil lab in Madison. And then they email back and tell you how your soil is. You could put in some fertilizer if you wanted to. And I guess I mentioned in the video, I'm a really lazy fertilizer because I either don't have it or I forget. And our garden has been amended. We are continually digging in leaves, pine needles, and straw, so that continually makes the quality of the soil really, really rich. I would say that if you're not sure, or, if you don't have time to find out about the chemical content of your soil, the soil texture would probably be the biggest thing, because garlic does not like clay. It doesn't like hard, wet soil. It wants that real loose, friable soil.
Like chocolate cake.
Like chocolate. Think cake. Think cake.
Man,
Yeah.
you're getting me hungry now. You're talking my language.
Yeah, there we go.
And kind of keeping with soil, our next question came in via text was, how deep do you insert the clove into the soil?
Maybe 3 or 4 inches. Some things in life are so automatic you can't remember how did I do that. I would say about 3 inches or so. And again, I tend to plant more shallow than some people might, because I put so much mulch on top that the clove is underneath this much stuff. By the time by the time it starts to set those wonderful roots. So about maybe 3 inches or so, and then maybe 4 to 5 inches apart. Some of the things you read might tell you to make them, 5 inches deep and 6 inches apart. That's just a lot of wasted real estate in my estimation. I like things to be closer than that.
Well, you are the expert, so hey, take her advice. Usually when you plant like daffodils,
Sure.
they say X amount of, like 3 times or 4 times the height of the bulb.
Yep.
So you take this, and you'd say
That's
twice.
about
Twice
that. Yeah.
Twice the height of that bulb.
Yeah,
So
I push it down into, the soil is really, really loose, so I just stuff it way down in there, and basically all I see is a little tiny paper tip at the top.
perfect.
Yep. Any other questions? Nope. All right, well, thank you very much.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Well, this has really been cool. What is your favorite recipe that you use in it?
Oh, boy. I think probably I make marinara sauce, and then I also do roasted tomatoes on a sheet pan where I have lots of garlic and tomatoes, and then I roast them in olive oil and then put them in bags and put them in the freezer.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that sounds
I was also going to say that everyone should receive through email
Yes.
a little handout thing that I put together. And my email address at the community garden is on there. So if anybody who's watching comes up with a question when you start to put your gardens together, or has garlic questions, I'd be happy to hear from you and answer your questions. And I think that,
Yeah, you want to highlight a little bit what they'll receive?
okay, the handout, that's a good question. The handout has a little bit of information at the top explaining the differences between hardneck and softneck, which we kind of did here with our little demo. Talks, one thing too, that it's a good idea to rotate your crops, your garlic crops, just like you rotate your other garden crops. Sometimes you will find a clove that might have funny brown spots on it. Garlic, and I learned this within the last 3-4 days, garlic gets fusarium fungus, just like tomatoes do. So, if you keep moving it around as best you can, that's just a real good idea to get the best use out of the quality of your soil.
Is there a companion plant that grows well with garlic, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't done, I guess I cram so much in my plot, they all have to get along with one another.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Because
yes,
there's so
they're
much
all
down there.
interviewed.
They're all into, exactly. If they don't play well with others, they don't get to come back the following year.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, we don't want any arguing
no
amongst
arguing, no arguing.
the
Yeah, I
turnips
don't,
and the garlic.
I would think, because that's the other advantage of garlic, with some plants, we're constantly dealing with issues, whether it's different kinds of fungus on the tomatoes, or if it's potato bugs, or if it's bean leaf beetles eating up the bean plants. Garlic doesn't have a lot of that stuff, which is another good reason,
That is
especially
so
as
refreshing.
as a new gardener, I think that'd be either a good, easy thing to start with if you
Oh,
want to try to
easy.
have some success.
Yeah, because
'Cause
that's
it-
the biggest problem.
Oh, yeah,
you know.
dealing with the critters, whether it's,
Yeah.
insects or.
I guess if I was a
Airborne.
bug, I wouldn't necessarily
No.
want to chomp
Well,
up
and it's
some
kind of,
garlic.
it's like why I plant daffodils but not tulips, because none of the squirrels and deer and rabbits don't eat daffodils.
Yep.
And voles don't bother my garlic or my onions,
Awesome.
but they eat
Yeah.
my potatoes all the time.
Yeah, well,
so.
maybe we'll have to plant a little barrier over
Yeah,
our
there we go,
garden
there
with
we-
the garlic.
Garlic barrier around
Yeah,
all the good
yeah,
stuff, yeah.
good idea.
Yeah. All right, so if you have questions, be sure to take a look at your emailed handout, and feel free to send me an email.
Is that about it on the handout?
That's about it on the handout.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh,
Yeah,
I'll look
there's
forward to
lots of storage tips and things like that on there, but they can figure that out, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Very
Well,
good.
you know what, it'd be really awesome if everybody would give us a report on how well you did with
Yeah,
your garlic planting.
Yeah.
Your successes, your questions as you're in action of doing so. And then, of course, being a big foodie, as you and I both are, give us some recipes. That
Yeah,
you tried.
recipes
They're
are
fresh.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
good.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to try it.
Okay. Any more questions, John?
All good.
All right, very
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It
Well,
was fun.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well,
all
as
good.
we conclude our garlic seminar, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go and make some marinara right now with my
Okay.
garlic that I have.
There we go.
I love it. And we appreciate you coming by, Mary.
Thank you.
And we
Great to be
love to
here.
hear from you. And the 5 months of anticipation is now over with. And
Yeah,
I'm just so excited to plant my garlic and hear from you all from, listening to the video, and continue to look at our rootsandbranches.org and get more information about a lot of other things that the Roots and Branches have in mind for you and the community and all your volunteering help. And we thank all of you who have been involved with Roots and Branches, and please continue to check with our information on rootsandbranches.org. It's called rootsbranches.org, not Roots and Branches. That's important to know. And keep up with all of our seminars. We do about 4 or 5 a year, and we have lots of fun things planned for next year. So thank you so much, and see you in the garden.
Good night. Thank you.